brilliant speed.
Look at that. It's 10:30. And that means it's time.
It's
to
time.
Turn the studio over to these folks here.
It's time for Vibrant You. All right. Well, thank you, Jeff. My name is Shane.
I'm Jane.
And I'm Nathan.
And this week we thought we would mesh around.
Recording in
Okay.
progress.
We're going
The recording is in progress.
We're already meshing around.
Well, yeah, and evidently it's going to be recorded, folks.
Yes,
so
it
if
is.
you're meshing around, be careful.
In fact, here we go. And I forgot to put press the recording button on my camera as well. So
What?
I know.
And
Quit meshing around, Shane.
yes.
This is a lot of
What have
meshing
you been
around.
meshing around with?
We're going to mess around with Wi-Fi today. We're done messing around with things in the studio now.
All right.
So let's mesh with Wi-Fi. So we're going to talk about what mesh is, and there's a lot to unpack here, right? So Nathan's going to start us out with, what is mesh?
Yeah, so we get this question pretty often. It's kind of a newer term for some people, and mesh refers to Wi-Fi. So let's define Wi-Fi a little bit. Wi-Fi is basically the wireless internet that you'll typically see in your home or business, so you don't have to physically connect everything. Wi-Fi kind of began in the late 90s in 1997, but it wasn't really until the early 2000s that it kind of gained more popularity in homes. Before that, early setups relied on physical connections. Ethernet cables run from your internet connection to your computer. I remember, when my family got a computer and got connected to the internet, we had one computer sitting next to our internet connection, and that's the only thing that was connected to the internet in the house. It's crazy to think about today with all the devices we have. But early wireless routers were not feasible for a lot of people because they just weren't very fast. You couldn't really do much, even if you were connected wirelessly. The speeds just weren't very fast. And then Wi-Fi started to get better and better and become more affordable. You got today's Wi-Fi 6 that Vibrant's routers offer. You can get between 400 megabits and up to a gig wirelessly with a Wi-Fi 6 router, which is crazy to think about how far we've come in the last 20-ish years. But as Wi-Fi needs expanded, so did frustration, because between people's thick walls, if you, God forbid, you had steel in your house or you had stucco, those are like no-nos for signal. Long hallways, homes with multiple levels. There were dead zones all over the place when it comes to wireless signal. People wanted to stream, browse, and work from anywhere. It's no longer that you only needed internet at the home office. Now you needed it for every TV in the room, every bedroom, every bathroom. Heck, you need it outside now for cameras. So you need Wi-Fi in way more areas than we used to. And then with these early Wi-Fi units, they would have what's called Wi-Fi repeaters. It's a way of extending it that basically captures signal from your router, creates a new network most of the time, and extends it out. And these became popular in the 2000s, as we got better routers and better repeaters. It was a quick fix. It gave us more Wi-Fi range in some areas, but it also had its issues where, like I said, you'd have multiple networks that you'd have to connect to. There would be added latency every time you added a new type of router to extend your coverage. So mesh is kind of where it'll help. I know personally, back in the day when I needed better Wi-Fi, I would get another router, sometimes not even the same brand, and it would offer me some extension, but then I would have multiple networks. I'd have to connect to one router in one room. If I go to the other side of the house, I had to connect to the other router with a different network, and it was kind of a pain in the butt, and it just wasn't very useful or very helpful. So we've come a long way, of course. Shane, I know you've been in the Wi-Fi extension game for a long time, needing service in your man cave garage.
Right.
So, what have you experienced on your end?
Well, same as you, Nathan, where I bought extenders, repeaters or whatever, back in the early 2000s, and same kind of a frustration where, like, if I was on my laptop, like in one room where the extender was, it would log onto that network. Well, then if I moved to a different room, then I would drop that signal and I'd have to actually re-log back on manually to the main network. And that just got to be kind of a pain. And I learned about mesh back in like 2015, 2016. I read where this mesh stuff was coming out. And that's exactly where mesh comes into play. Mesh started out in the industrial and military realms back in the 90s, but it didn't come into play in the consumer friendly focused areas in 2016, 2017, and that's when I bought my first mesh system, and I bought a network or Netgear Orbi system. And brands like Eero and Google Nest and, of course, Netgear, they helped popularize the concept, and they had some easy setup and kind of a sleek design. And the rise of smart homes and streaming demands made mesh a must-have for larger homes with tricky layouts. So mesh systems use multiple devices called nodes or satellites that work together to blanket your home in seamless coverage. So you can walk from one room to another and not have to disconnect from one network and reconnect onto another network. So instead of relying on one central router, the mesh satellites or whatever would communicate with each other, and they would automate this process. And Jane's going to talk a little bit more about what the difference is between how a mesh system works compared to an extender or a repeater.
Right. So a repeater extender rebroadcasts your signal, often creating a separate network name, like you had talked about, Shane. So when you're going from room A and it has the router A in there, and then you go to room B, router B takes over. So you have to log in, and it gets frustrating. So you lose all that work that you've done if you hadn't saved it. So it drops or lags, like we had talked about. A mesh system, on the other hand, is a single network name, and it's devices which switch between the nodes automatically and smoothly. And I've described this very often as ABC. So A is where the original router is, C is where you want the extended service of internet there, and you put the mesh in B. So when you walk from room A and go all the way to the other end of the house, that it's seamless. You don't have to worry about getting it dropped and anything. It's smooth, and it works really well. And it's a self-organizing network, and it's dynamic. So they talk to each other. They're constantly adjusting the delivery and making sure that your device is picking up the strongest signal.
Like Jane mentioned, it's seamless when you move through your house. I remember back in the day, if I was on a Wi-Fi call or a video call, if I went from one of my Wi-Fi routers and passed to another one, it would drop the call completely. I'd have to start over. With mesh, it doesn't really do that anymore because they seamlessly hand off. The technology is smart enough now where they're meshed together in a way where you can travel around your property or your business or where you work. A lot of places have it set up this way where you'll never drop signal. You'll just seamlessly hand off from one to the other. You'll have one network name, like Jane mentioned. It makes it a lot easier than having a bunch of different networks flying around, competing with each other, causing problems, and so you don't have to. The biggest difference probably is that it eliminates the need to physically have to connect via Ethernet to, because imagine if you had to connect, every bedroom in your house, every room in your house with physical wire. Your house, unless it was newly built, it just doesn't have Ethernet wires run throughout it. Imagine having to run wire to every camera that you might want to put outside, your doorbell camera, your garage camera, whatever you might have. It's just not realistic. So that as Wi-Fi has gotten better, and specifically mesh Wi-Fi, it allows us to do a heck of a lot more than we used to do before. Think of it like streetlights in a neighborhood. Each one might brighten its corner, but when they all light up, they can light up a whole block kind of thing. So instead of, going from one light, running in the dark, running to another light, they all come together and kind of light up the whole block. I kind of like that analogy Shane came up with. So, but yeah, it's much better than it used to be. It's much faster, much more reliable, and frankly, just a lot more usable in everyday life.
So typically, they are used and needed in homes that are rather large. We would think over 2,000 square feet that have multiple levels. Or there's places where there's a lot of interference or walls. So if you have an old farmhouse that has plaster walls, or you have a lot of interference in there. And so, or like brick, concrete, that would be another example. So typically, this is also great for families that have multiple devices and multiple users. So if you guys are running a lot of devices and you need consistent coverage in those areas, a mesh system is for you. Or, Mr. Shane, if you have a man cave or a lady, or a lady lounge and you want coverage out there, this is a great opportunity. And sometimes those systems the interference between steel siding and plaster and that kind of stuff. So this is where that mesh would really pick up. And if you live in a small apartment or a small home, this is a little bit on the overkill side. So we look at that as you'd probably only need a router if you had a single home, not many devices connected, and if you're on a tight budget. So speaking of costs, Shane.
Yeah, so there is a cost to mesh systems. They're routers that are built differently. They're specifically made to talk to each other, whereas a router and extender, they aren't. They aren't built that way, so they're going to be a little less expensive. But if you look at the cost of putting in a mesh system, when I bought my Orbi system back in 2017, it was like $350. It was an investment, and now it's 7 years later, 8 years later, and it's kind of wore out. And I'm looking at investing in another mesh system, and I'm looking at the same one I bought, or one similar, and it's like $450. And the thing is that Vibrant already offers mesh, and so we supply a router with our service, right? So you get the main router, but if it's not enough, if you need to get to the man cave like I do, I can get a mesh system from Vibrant, and it's $5 a month. So if you look at the cost of $450 or $5 a month, it's about 7 years of paying for that, and it's the same money out of pocket. So in this case, it does make sense to rent another mesh unit. In most cases, you only need one extra one. In fact, my brother needed a mesh system when we were looking at his house, and so he got one, $5 a month, and you can have that for 7-8 years, and it's the same out of pocket money. And then that time, we maintain it. Vibrant maintains it. If something happens to it, we replace it. As technology grows or changes, we upgrade and things like that. So, it makes perfect sense to do it that way with Vibrant.
The other thing is when you use the equipment that we have, our network team is able to look at it if you are having some problems and then identify the problem right away and works with you to have that happen. And so now this is a complete blonde moment, funny story, so bear with me. I am not a techie person at all. So I recently moved, and we got internet put in on the south side of our house, and my daughter lives on the north side of the house, and obviously we're going to have problems because it's far away. So I knew I needed a mesh system, and I needed to put it in location B. So I go in and talk to the guys at the network, and Dan connects me. He hooks me up, he gives me the mesh, and he's like, okay, this is what you need to do. Take a picture of where it gets plugged into the router and where it gets plugged into the mesh system, and then let it talk for a good 20-30 minutes. Okay. I did that. I pulled my little phone out, took the picture. Now here's the blonde moment. I didn't plug in the mesh system
it needs
charge.
to be plugged in?
So the two routers, how it works is you plug the two routers into each other so they talk back and forth. And
kind of like having an extension cord, but not plugging it in.
Well, but she forgot to plug it into power.
Yeah.
I didn't forget. I had no idea I needed to power that in. So they laughed, and I'm like, I'm sorry. Total blonde moment. Thank you for being so patient. And Dan was great. He didn't rip on me or anything. He's just, okay, Jane, let's keep going here.
Yeah.
So then I had him on the phone, and he's like, yep, you're connected. I see the mesh system is up. You're, just plug it in now do its thing, and you're fine.
Yeah, and that's the other thing with our system is our network group can troubleshoot remotely with our system. If you have put your own system in, they can't do anything beyond, you're getting internet to your home. Right. Beyond that, we can't help you, kind of a thing. So that's what's really nice.
Right. And the other part of this is, it's like the old telephone when you plug it into the wall, that how it clicks in like that. So I'm having to unplug it from the router, and then I go take it to my location B, while I can't get that thing out of that mesh system if my life depended on it. So I'm using a tong from my
the right
kitchen.
tool for the job, you know.
Sure.
Squish that baby on there, and I just rip it off.
Get an ice tong
So,
on there.
and then
Yeah.
I checked. I did my speed tests, and we got it. We're good to go, and it's all happy in the meshing around system. But
All right.
again, I mean, my point is, you know, not everybody is techie like Shane and Nathan, and our team does a great job just making it happen. And I didn't at one point feel stupid at all. So
Yeah. So that's mesh.
There you go.
Yep.
Meshing
Yeah,
around.
we get more and more calls all the time, and people think, well, maybe my internet speeds aren't fast enough, or no, my internet's not working very well because in my one bedroom my TV is really laggy, or it's not working very well. It works well everywhere else. I'm like, well, if it works everywhere else, it's maybe not your internet, maybe it's the range, maybe it's your router, your mesh, the fact that you need a mesh unit. So it's becoming more and more a thing. We get calls for it all the time. So if you are out there and you're having issues with range, or you want to put in cameras and they just don't reach, or you have a TV that's not working very fast and maybe it's the one that's furthest from the router, give us a call. See if there's something we can help with. See if adding an additional unit would fix your problem. We'd be happy to help. So a reminder as well, we have a week left on our promotion for Vikings tickets. We have 2 ways to qualify. If you sign up for Vibrant on our 200 megabit or higher package, you'll get a $50 Visa card, and you'll get entered into a drawing to win Vikings versus Bears tickets. I believe that's around mid-November. Also, if you refer a friend to Vibrant and they sign up and say, hey, my friend referred me, you both will get $25 on your first bill as a bill credit, and you'll also be entered in a drawing to win those Vikings, a different set of Vikings Bears tickets. So that ends on September 30th. We got about a week left. If you have questions about mesh systems, Wi-Fi, internet, give us a call. Local number 320-693-3231. Visit our website, vibrantbroadband.com. As always, if you missed part of today's show, or you want to check back at some of our other shows and topics, check us out on Facebook and YouTube. You can search Vibrant Broadband. As always, listen live every Wednesday, 10:30 here on KLFD.
All right. Well, thank you, Jeff, for having us. Thank you, audience, for listening. My name is Shane.
I'm Jane.
And I'm Nathan.
Tune in next week for another Vibrant You Live.
Brilliant speed with vibrant service. Vibrant broadband internet. Vibrant broadband internet.